Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EdTech Authority video podcast. I'm Will McCoy, CEO of EdTech Authority. I am so excited about the meeting today. We've got a great guest. We have really a fascinating example of EdTech that's kind of the non-traditional EdTech. I want to get into that. We're going to talk about innovation. We're going to talk about growing your company. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the podcast. So, like I said, we have an incredible guest today. I'd like to introduce Alex Wong from SchoolStream. He's the VP, and he's agreed to join us. How you doing today, Alex?
Great. I'm doing great, Will. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Hey, no problem. Alex and I have had the pleasure of working together for about 4 months now, and I really there's something special about SchoolStream and what you guys do. Can you, before we get into that, kind of a teaser, but let's hear a little bit about your background and your experience, and then we'll get into the product.
Sure. Yeah. I started off, I guess, working in this company for quite some time and started off at focusing with school districts locally in the Michigan area. And kind of grown from a position of account maintenance, customer service, and really kind of covering all aspects of the operation. For my entire professional career, if I remember correctly, even when I was still in college, I was working close with school districts. So actually, I was working part time while I was at University of Michigan doing customer service and training school districts. So all I kind of really know is this K-12 kind of space and working with school districts. So
Well, and for those of you that don't know Alex, he's kind of one of those unicorns that understands the tech deeply, and also understands schools. And that's such a critical piece to being successful in ed tech, because you have to be able to talk both languages. You have to be able to turn to one side, talk to your developers, turn to the other side, talk to your sales team, and to a principal and whoever else your audience is. And Alex navigates that beautifully. He does their demos, but then I'm sure that he's also the one that manages the development team as well. Is that correct, Alex?
yeah, so I we have a few other managers that kind of oversee more on a technical side, but we run our company very entrepreneurially, so I think that gives us the flexibility to kind of change and evolve as the district's needs change. So I think that's really important. But don't have to be afraid. I never had a technical degree in college. I think I studied economics or something. So, it's something that you can just get into and really kind of understand it. And I think it's invaluable. You need to understand the technical side. And like you said, well, being understand the client's needs and try to, link both of those things together. So.
Right. So I didn't know the economics piece, but knowing SchoolStream, that makes so much sense. So tell
Right.
us a little bit about SchoolStream and the niche that you guys have within EdTech. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of the pieces that you guys do so well.
Sure. I think, like you mentioned, well, traditionally, when somebody mentions ed tech, they're probably thinking about, curriculum software or, technology used for students or in the classroom. We actually kind of fell into this area locally. We were friends. The CEO was a good friend with the superintendent that posed an issue of operations on the back end side. They needed some help to automate the hiring process. And this was about 20 years ago. So it was pretty advanced. I mean, things were still very largely paper based. And very manual, very time consuming. And the superintendent had this thing to say, we need a software or we need somewhere to digitize that and automate that. And so from that point on, we've been in the industry for 20 years now, and now we're really evolved into this platform for business automation. So a lot of what we do is helping school districts map and automate their processes and really any type of operational process that they have, whether it be on the curriculum or non-curriculum side, we can help with that.
Right. Well, and I mean, you guys can do HR, finance. I mean, talk about you guys do everything down to enrollment, student enrollment online.
Right. So that's a good point. Well, a lot of our product and sort of product direction has been driven by our clients, our school districts. We started off a lot on very core operational processes like hiring, onboarding, managing, mileage reimbursements, and these kind of time card processing, these kind of paper intensive back and forth approvals. Um, and then school districts started to ask us, hey, do you have something to help us with registration? We're really having a lot of challenges doing that, and it's too expensive. Or we have this new bullying mandate, a bullying
Right.
incident report that we have to do. Can you help us? And those are very specific, problems that you can't really just go out and find a vendor that specializes in like bullying process management or something like that. So.
Right. Well, and back to your economics background, and I know that Joe, he's very involved in school finance and all of that. You guys just had a big win with a large school district. Why don't you tell the audience about that?
Yeah, so we've been working with a very large school district for some time. I mean, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit later about the procurement process within school districts that makes it, kind of a different animal or a different beast. This school district was struggling with managing a particular fund, a money market fund at each of the school sites. And they're very big. They have over 350 school sites or locations, and I think two or three people in their business and finance department managing these requests. So it's kind of a unique situation where the school site actually has the authority to either deposit or pull funds from that, but the actual transaction has to happen on the business and finance side on the district side. So if you can imagine, these transactions can happen, I don't know, 5, 10 times a month in times 350. So two people handling it. The processing is, and it's all paper based. The request is through paper. So the issue was that they were receiving those requests through email, and a lot of those requests would get lost. And I think there were close to $20 million that this fund was, total amount of funds across all districts. So if you imagine the checks and balances and trying to do that in Excel and on paper. So
Right.
um, it was kind of crazy. So obviously, we work with them to try to understand the process, try to understand their workflow, their automation. And then really the first thing we approach is not necessarily giving them an off-the-shelf issue, but really trying to dive deep into the process and understand where are the bottlenecks, where are the inefficiencies, and then how can we use technology to help streamline it and help increase the efficiency on that. And with this type of process, I think it has to do a lot with the auditing and the tracking and just making sure
Sure.
that the governance process is there. So,
Well, and fraud protection, right? I mean, when you've got so many moving parts with financial accounts, you have to have all those checks and balances in place. I know that as a superintendent for a small district, that was a nightmare and could go
right.
completely sideways. But then when you talk about a 350 site district, one of the 15 largest in the nation,
Yeah.
that all of the moving parts. What you guys don't know about Alex is he creates these diagrams that are intense. And if you're not a diagram person, they're a little overwhelming. But you guys are so sensitive to the fact that you listen to your clients and you say, what are the bottlenecks? What are the needs? Just as you described. And how can we serve you? Which is such an important ed tech idea. It's not customers for your product, it's product for your customers. And so
Right.
to be able to get there with a challenge like this one, I mean, this what was the timeline on being able to look at building out this solution? It has to have been pretty significant.
Yeah, so I would say, one of the things that we really like to do is kind of operate, in an entrepreneur fashion, even though we've been in the
Right,
industry for a very long time. I think we got the initial request, and then within 2 weeks, we were able to come up with some sort of prototype. And I think that's really
wow,
important because, the what you mentioned, Will, I mean, those diagrams that we draw, it's a collaborative effort across the development team. Usually they hand us something that's, even more complicated, and then we kind of look at it and we're trying to dissect it and then make it so that, it's digestible by the client. But a lot of the
right.
times when you go into those processes, I think the initial knee-jerk reaction is that, oh, this is too complicated. And that's something that we really try to stress because there's a reason why it's inefficient. And it's inefficient because it is a complicated process. And if we don't diagram that out or have those specifics there, in our experience, a lot of the times it's not good enough. They can't envision how this solution is going to help them unless we cover all of those details. So I think that's a really important process. So.
Well, and this comes with a big headline, and I don't want to ruin the outcome or the savings that you guys were able to generate or anticipated savings. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we calculated savings. A lot of what we do in terms of the return on investment calculation is try to quantify labor savings in a dollar value because a lot of the times it's hard. You're not necessarily just going to save that bunch of money, especially in the school district's mind. Everything is budgeted, so everything needs to be spent. But what's important is just try to put a number to the amount of time that we could actually save each of the employees that are involved in the process. And it's fairly easy to do that. You just kind of take the time that they're spent performing that action, multiply it by their salary, and then we can get an efficiency gain. So with this calculation, I think we calculated that there's easily over $1 million that can be saved instantly on that. And when we presented that, they agreed on it. I mean, it was pretty black
Wow,
and white on what's happening manually and how much time is being wasted right now. So.
right. Well, and being able to quantify what you're doing for your client is such an important aspect to any school sale, right? And $1 million savings is tough to argue if you're that school
Right.
district. I mean, that's 10 teachers. I mean, it's just to be able to do that and to be able to produce those type of results for clients, it is extraordinary, and I need to commend you guys on that. Um, One of the things that you're always very sensitive to the fact that schools have particular budgets, and you just mentioned it, but your pricing model is very interesting too, and that you guys have a cap, which is almost unheard of. So can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Obviously, Will, as a superintendent, you know this very well. One of the key things of bringing technology into the school district is how to sustain that technology down the road or into the future. And we saw that to become a major issue for some of the school districts as budgets change, demographics change, whatever that might be. So, one of the things that we wanted to do is to guarantee that our solution can actually continue to be sustainable within a school district. So, we actually set a cap on the subscription. We're a subscription based, and the cap is depending on the school district size. And basically, if you reach that cap, from that point on, any additional applications that you deploy on our platform, there won't be an increase on your subscription cost. And that's really our model. We want to make sure that it's icing on top of the cake. And from that point on, they don't have to worry about budgeting us anymore. It's already locked in into the
Right,
budget. And I think that's really critical when setting up a pricing model to try to understand how the school district's budgeting works. And then so you can make sure that your solution's sustainable within the organization. So.
right. So, and I'm just going to speak in generalities here, but if a district were to hit their cap, but not all of the modules, they could add those
Mhm.
additional modules at no additional cost.
Exactly. Typically, we also took a really close look at how many modules it would hit, or it would take, sorry, to hit that cap, right? And
Right.
roughly, most of the school districts would have to deploy between 3 to 4 applications. So we're not talking about like you got to deploy 20 applications before you hit the cap, right? And so our whole goal here is to really try to work with the school districts so that they can hit that cap within 3 years. Because typically there's a lot of stuff going on within the school district, and we don't want, the automation just doesn't happen overnight. So if we can handle one or two major processes every year, you think about it, in 3 years, we have six of the major operational processes mapped out, right? And that's really our goal. At that point, anything you want to map out additionally is already covered under the subscription. So,
Right. I think it's a fantastic model, and I want the audience to pay attention to it because it's again being sensitive to the needs of schools. Schools aren't businesses. Schools aren't like any other client, and you have to keep in mind they do have budgets, they do have auditors, they do have all of those things and processes that you need to be sensitive to. That's why selling ed tech is different. Anyway, I really like the way that you guys have set up your pricing model, and obviously you found your niche within the ed tech sector, on a national level. I mean, you guys are serving schools across the U.S., which is fantastic. So those are all the successes. What are the things that keep you staring at the ceiling at night that you're just like, okay, this is something we need to tweak either for a client or as a company?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think we would be able to evolve to this degree without all of the mistakes that we've made in the past. Really to get to this point of having a cap subscription, in the last few years, and really evolving our pricing. I mean, I can't even begin to tell the countless experiments that we try to do in terms of budgeting per employee, per student. Do we do an average? And Will, you know this very well too, coming from both sides. What is the ratio? Every state student
Right,
per teacher ratio is different. It just, so you're really not going to get to a point of really understanding without all of those mistakes. And I think what keeps us up at night is making sure that our product is still valuable. There's we in tech, we have to see 20, 30 years down the road. Things change so quick, and we want to make sure that we have enough of a sustainability on the platform that general direction is the right direction, so we can just keep moving down that path. So,
right. Well, and you guys are pivoting pretty quickly right now. I mean, you just, I mean, you've got student enrollment, you've got device management, and so
mhm,
COVID has created this new unexpected horizon, this new unexpected climate that we have
right.
to overcome and deal with. And so, do you want to talk about some of the products that you guys have that are specific to the current situation?
Sure. I think what, really, again, through a lot of evolving and evolution of our product, going into a platform concept allows us the flexibility to pivot very quickly. The platform really allows us to build any type of process on there. And if you think about it, that's probably one of the key challenges that school districts are facing operating remotely now. And I think you had mentioned this, Will, this no touch or no contact type scenario. I mean, if you don't have your processes automated and they're paper based, then it is touch, and that's a very big scare right now.
Right,
So luckily for us, one of our competitive differentiators is really kind of evolving towards this platform so that we can really put together any type of process that they need. And this really gives the flexibility for school districts to use us to fill in the gaps. Instead of traditionally, you're kind of looking out and researching, hey, is there a student registration application? Is there this? And then you end up bringing 15, 20 different vendors that don't talk to each other. So our concept is, hey, we don't really care what you're using. We can coexist with that. We can work in conjunction with that, and you can use this to really build anything that you guys need, right? So it's kind of future proof instead of very geared towards a specific solution. So,
so how are you guys working on building SchoolStream? How are you, new client attainment, all of that? What is your current process?
I think right now there's a big emphasis on, I guess I could talk about it from two sides. Internally, we're really focused on replication. So we really want to make sure that our processes, our standards, how we get the client's requirements, how do we understand those types of things are really efficient. So we can work with them and we can do things like present a prototype or something like that within 2 weeks or 3 weeks and really service them on a different level. Um, I think externally, nothing has really changed in terms of building solid references and building a solid product that the school districts can stand by and we can as well. But I think there's much more of an emphasis on marketing and trying to, sort of wrap the minds around, solutions instead of this worry. And it's always within school districts kind of cyclical. Depending on the situation. Obviously, this COVID is eating away at everyone right now, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to happen overnight. And there's various solutions that can actually assist you to do that. And so I think there's no magic bullet. It's just kind of working through that. And we're really trying to emphasize and change the mindset of let's stop worrying and then let's start looking at tangible solutions and take actions now, so we can get into a better situation.
Right. Very good. So we get calls from startups. And the other day, I got a call from a really cool sophomore in college. He's got a great idea for a piece of software. And he's like, I don't even know if you're going to talk to me, but he wrote me the nicest email, most pleasant email of, will you even talk to me for 15 minutes to help me? I was like, of course, let's
That's
get on the
really
phone.
cool.
But I'm thinking, okay, if I had a piece of advice or a piece of advice that you have, that if somebody gave you that call, all right, Alex, you get one golden pearl of advice for an ed tech entrepreneur, what would you say it is?
Wow, that's a hard one. That's a tricky one. But I would say don't give up. And I know that sounds really generic, but a lot of the times your initial innovation, and people call it innovation, but I don't really see it as innovation. Your initial thought of what you need or your product or your creation, more than likely that's going to change. And that's good. You want to embrace that process. But the issue is that if you don't spend enough time within the industry to try to understand and accept that change, you're not going to have enough time to get that product to where it needs or where the industry actually needs it. So just because somebody says, look, that product, may not work, take that to heart and say, well, don't just stick to that product and say, no, I'm not, that's not what I mean by not giving up. Take that idea and try to mold that. There's been a lot of instances that if you don't stay in the industry for a long enough time, you can't evolve the product. And unfortunately, I think from a, private equity standpoint or those investments, a lot of the times they don't give entrepreneurs enough time to evolve their product because they have that financial pressure. And you really need that time to sit in the industry, get the feedback, and then change and evolve that. So don't give up in that sense. Not don't give up and stick to that product, but evolve it and then use it and then take that feedback there. So
Well, and speaking of feedback, you guys do that. That's really good, by the way. I mean, but it's very simple in that don't
mhm,
give up. You're right. But as you scale your organization and as you grow, you always hit that ceiling, and you're just like, are we going to make it? Our revenue streams have changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 months. But the fact
right.
is, you have to figure out how to navigate, you have to figure out how to pivot, and that not giving up. I mean, when you're staring at the ceiling at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out what to do next, what's most important is do something next, right? It is that keep
Right.
going and push forward. In relation to, seeking good advice, you guys have the educational leader um, group that you're putting together. Can you talk about that?
Right. Yeah, the K-12 thought leaders. Yeah, I think one of the recognitions that we have is that in order to really evolve, And in order to actually bring solutions that are needed to the education industry, we need to have people participating in that that have the experience and have the leadership within the industry from all angles. So we're not just talking about school district leadership, administrative state level leadership, but also tech companies that can use technology and mold the technology to fit those needs. And I think a lot of what we see right now is a lot of roadblocks or red tapes that are preventing us to get to solutions that school districts are yelling for help right now. And if we can form this coalition for everybody to work together, maybe we can make it faster. We can speed up solutions. We can help them quicker. So,
Well, and again, you guys, you're just firing on all cylinders in that in so doing, you're also dealing with the people that are going to be potential clients, right? And
mhm,
you're exposing them not on a sales level, but on a philosophic, how can we help? How can we serve you level, which I really appreciate because superintendents, someone said, superintendent has to make like 2,000 decisions a day or something like that. The last thing they want is someone else in their face trying to sell them something. And here
right,
I am, ed tech, sales and marketing, right? But the fact
right,
is, it's about being respectful of their space and the timing and all that. Right now, I had many of our clients. My recommendation is this is when you're going to do your updates, this is when you're going to do your revisions, and you're going to get ready for when the market kind of opens back up. But be there as a resource to school districts because they need you, but they only need you when they need you, right? I mean, it's
right,
that balance of I want you to know that I'm here and I support you, but I'm not pushing. And so
right,
it's maintaining that awareness. And this is a great way to do that, especially in the age of COVID, where there may be a need out there that nobody's tapped yet, which is when you see leapfrogging of technology, when you see dramatic innovation, when the opportunity meets the skill set to make it happen, that's a really beautiful thing. So, and it benefits everyone. It benefits the company that comes out with it, and it benefits the districts or whoever the client is. So I commend you guys on putting that together, the K-12 thought leaders, because they need a place to express that other than shouting at their screen. I wish I had blah blah blah. They need
right.
that conduit, and I appreciate you guys providing that. That's something I want
Yeah,
to follow up on in our future podcasts. Just how's it going? What are you guys coming across? What type of feedback do you need? More people? All of those different things. I want
right.
EdTech Authority to be a resource for you guys on that.
Yeah, that would be great.
So we talked about a whole spectrum of different stuff today, which is fantastic. But I also know that that smile that you have right now, I've never seen you without it. So the work-life balance, all of those things, how do you keep your balance in what can be a very stressful career pathway that we've selected here?
Right. I don't, that's a really good question. And things have changed quite drastically for me, especially in the past 5 years, because I have two little ones now, and a 5.5 and a 2.5. Um, I think I don't really see a cutoff during work. It's kind of melded into my life, and I think that's a important aspect of work-life balance. Not that you're always on call, which I am kind of, but it's become kind of part of your life, and so I think we have the philosophy in our company that if you need to take care of something, if you need a break, whatever that is, there's enough trust in the company that you don't have to sit there for like 8 hours straight to do what you need to do. A lot of the times you can be much more effective. And we've been working remotely for a time now. I think this will be a huge game changer for education and school districts because I think they're going to see a lot of productivity and positive things that can happen when you're working from home. And to me, I think that is a big conduit to having some more work-life balances. I mean, just like you will, we will work around the clock, but I can't get up and go outside in the garden, or I can take a 5 minute, 10 minute walk. And I
Right.
think those types of really help. I can go play with the kids for a little bit while they're at home. And I think those are really important. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Absolutely. Well, no, I know that even the office that you're in right now, your wife surprised you with, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. I was, when we started working remotely, we didn't really have a home office, and I was at a conference, an educational conference, and I came back, and for my birthday, she had set up this whole room, which was amazing, and I think that's also really important to have kind of a designated area, so that when you do need to do something or you do need to do work, you have that there to separate it. So, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't give this up from going to an office or something like that. I mean, it's just part of it. It's like maybe we're sick or something. We like to work all the time, but it's a
I think you're
lifestyle that So
Yeah, absolutely. And well, and again, you guys are such a pleasure to work with because you get it, right? You get the timelines and you understand the need to be flexible and you understand when it's time to work, nobody works harder. But then if you need to take a breath, you take a breath. And so I appreciate that in
right,
working with you guys and collaborating on that. You're not afraid to laugh. You're not afraid to be a person instead of just a business. So I appreciate that
right.
about you guys. Um, all right. So one of the questions we ask all of our guests is, everybody has their own favorite either app or piece of tech or something of that nature. And we like to be able to give a shout out to other companies, right, that are doing good work because as great as all my guests are, we know that there are 1,000 other companies that I don't get to interview. So we like to give a shout out. Do you have a favorite app or piece of tech that you just, it's the favorite?
Oh my gosh, this is going to sound horrible, but the we don't really need to give a shout out to like bigger companies, but I was just such a non-believer of the Apple Watch. This is going to sound ridiculous, and Apple certainly doesn't need me to endorse that. Um,
Right.
so my wife is a teacher as well, and she like dies by her Apple Watch, and I was like, that's kind of dumb. Like I don't need that. I have real watches, and I have my phone. But this Apple Watch, I would say, is probably something that keeps me on target more than anything else. Not just from a meeting
Right.
perspective, that sometimes I get sidetracked, but just even the alerts that it tells me to like, breathe. I don't know if you have I don't know if you have an Apple Watch, but it will
Right.
notify you to tell you to like take a breath or that or you're behind. Usually you're walking a little bit more than you should right now, and so those types
Oh,
of breaks I think are tremendous for me because you could just sit in there and then just kind of be freezed, and then this will kind of shake you out of the zone. So obviously
right.
Apple doesn't need me. I would say this and and probably I'm really into audiobooks right now. So
Yeah.
Audible, just because I'm doing a lot of stuff and Audible and stuff like that. And there's our library app as well. So I would really recommend you guys, if you're into audiobooks, your library probably provides an audio app locally, and that's good to support that. You can get all these books online, and the amount of books you can read by listening, at least for me, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
times 10,
Right.
um,
Right.
so I want to shout
Well,
out to
and
small guys. I have to think about that in our next podcast.
right. Well, yeah, and a little company some people may have heard of, Apple, whatever.
Yeah,
So
they,
it's
they they came
it's a
out
good
with
up and
a bunch.
comer, one to
Yeah.
watch. Alex, I can't thank you enough for meeting with us today, for just providing all the insight, your experience. You guys do great work at SchoolStream. For those of you that haven't been there yet, you do need to take a look at it. It's ssk12.com.
Yep.
And Alex, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Will, thank you for having me on the show. It's always been a pleasure. You, EdTech Authority, you guys have been great. We love our partnership, and hopefully I'll come on again and we'll talk about something else. I loved it.
Well, sign me up. We'll pick a date. It's all good, man.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Also, a big shout out to our other sponsors. We've got workvivo.com. We've got STEM Minds. Check them out at the STEM Minds USA website. We're happy to announce that we are their United States facing partner for STEMminds.com. We've got SchoolStream, of course, Alex and the team, and we're happy to bring on Live Oak CS as a partner as well. Lots of good things happening around here. I'm going to dedicate an upcoming podcast to all of the work as we pivot in the pandemic at EdTech Authority. What does that look like? Maybe you guys will be able to pick up some ideas. I never propose to know it all, but I can tell you what we're doing, and maybe it'll spark something great. Until then, I look forward to sharing our next guest with you next time. We look forward to your comments below. Thanks for joining us today. Have a good one. Bye.